اوكي هسه اشوفها. هذا ما اعرف يا جروب، راح اعيد اني انزلها بكل جروبات الطلاب. الطلاب عندكم 10 دقائق. آمنة ماكو، ما نتوقف، المحاضرات مستمرة، مو كيف نتوقف، مو سالفة إنه نتعامل بكيفنا ويا المادة. أوكي ما راح نتوقف، لكن ما تكون داخل الامتحان، أو ممكن تكون داخله، يعني ما أعرف، راح أفكر بيها. أوكي يجوز تكون داخل الامتحان، أدخلها الامتحان، ماكو مشكلة. أوكي صباح الخير، إن شاء الله كلكم زينين. تعرفون المحاضرة صارت 50 دقيقة، فلهذا ما راح نتأخر. عندكم 10 دقائق تسجلون الحضور. فاللي ما مسجلها واللي ينسى واللي يجي متأخر، فأنا ما راح عندي إلى أي عذر، ما راح أكتب حضوره، فكيف بعد يحضر ما يحضر كيف. 10 دقائق عندكم. أوكي الرابط يفتح، ما أتوقع ما يفتح لأنه موجود. رجاء بس دخلوها بالإيميلات، شو اسمه يعني إيميلات الجامعية. أوكي بس أبدأ أعرف تسمعوني. أوكي الصوت واضح. إذن السلايدات تشوفوها واضحة. أوكي جيد. شوية الصور بها هواية، الصور بها هواية. لا لازم أخلص 50 دقيقة إن شاء الله. أوكي ما راح نطول، المحاضرة هي 50 دقيقة فما نطول إن شاء الله. أوكي so خلوني بس أشوف العدد. 37 26 71. هذا يا جروب سي، الجروب اللي بيها جروب أي هذا. أوكي نخش جروب أكتف. تمام أوكي إذا خلونا نحضر المحاضرة نبديها إن شاء الله. Today we'll continue with the lecture number 9, which is talking about skeletal system development. Okay, skeletal system development. Actually, the skeletal system start to develop. I mean, about to start to develop from the layers itself. We'll see the embryological source for it. So it starts in the 7th week of embryonic development. Okay, so as you know, we have the axial skeletal system and appendicular skeleton. So today we will study axial skeletal, that is include the skull, vertebral column, and ribs, and every part of it. So generally, the embryological source of the skeletal system develops from, the skeletal system as a whole develops from paraxial and lateral plate parietal layer, which we call it for the mesoderm. We've studied this before, I think whenever we mentioned about the layers, and I told you that the mesoderm is somehow complicated, that is, can be differentiated into 2 other layers. Okay, so we have right here paraxial and lateral plate, which we call it parietal layer of the mesoderm. Okay, so the mesoderm, the part of it, the paraxial and lateral plate, which we call parietal layer, for the lateral, it forms the bones of the pelvic, shoulder, girdle, limbs, and the sternum. Okay, while the ectoderm, especially we call neural crystals. Okay, in the head region, because we said before that neural crystals have the ability to migrate. So especially in the head region, also differentiate into mesenchyme, and this mesenchyme will participate in the formation of the face and the skull. Okay, so this is the origin of the skeletal system generally. So look at here, right here showing you the differentiation, or before that, the development of the three germ layers. And we said before that we have ectoderm, mesoderm, and endoderm. And then the mesoderm, we have paraxial mesoderm, intermediate mesoderm, and we have lateral plate mesoderm, because the mesoderm will differentiate as I said before. So paraxial mesoderm right here, and we have intermediate mesoderm and lateral plate mesoderm. And paraxial mesoderm also will have the ability to differentiate into other cells that will form or will be the origin for the formation of the different parts in the different systems. Okay, so again, the mesoderm differentiated the paraxial mesoderm, intermediate mesoderm, and lateral plate mesoderm. So paraxial mesoderm and lateral plate mesoderm, they will form, or they will be the origin for the skeletal system, especially the parts that we mentioned about. Okay. So, paraxial mesoderm. Can everyone hear me? بس أريد أتأكد
Yes.
صوتي يتقطع ولا لا.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, because I'm somehow far from the Wi-Fi. That's why. Okay, I'm in the router. رابط الحضور. بعد من يريد رابط الحضور خليني أشوف. تمام. Okay. So, paraxial mesoderm. Again, we said that we have paraxial mesoderm, intermediate mesoderm, and lateral plate mesoderm. We will consider the paraxial mesoderm and lateral plate mesoderm. So paraxial mesoderm forms somatomeres, okay, somatomeres and somites, okay. Paraxial mesoderm forms somatomeres and somites, while somites will form sclerotome and dermomyotome. All these kind of tissues and cells that can form parts, okay, like somatomeres is segmented series of tissue blocks on each side of the neural tube. I will tell you what they will form. So somatomeres, they're segmented series of tissue blocks on each side of the neural tube. Okay, as we said before, right here, look at here, they found here. Okay, they will find here. So somites, they will differentiate in the sclerotome. They're also mesenchyme, or we call it in another way as embryonic connective tissue. Okay, then we have dermomyotome. إذا أنا إذا أسويها جدول أو إنه أسويها في مخطط، راح أقول إنه mesoderm إنه يتقسم إلى paraxial mesoderm, intermediate, and lateral plate. While I can say for paraxial mesoderm, I will also say somatomere, somites, and somites will differentiate into sclerotome and dermomyotome. I will do it for you, okay? And I will put it in the classroom in order to just to concentrate. Look again. This is also ectoderm, mesoderm, and endoderm, okay? And we have right here the note occurred. For the mesoderm, this is the paraxial mesoderm, okay? So look again, in each side of the neural tube, we have somites, okay? Somites, and we said that somite is a differentiation of a paraxial mesoderm, okay? So somites, in each side we have somites, okay? And then we'll have a paraxial, so we have the intermediate, then we have the lateral plate mesoderm, okay? So before we'll continue, you need to know that there is two definitions or a process that we need to know for the skeletal system development. As the ossification, okay? So we have two kinds of ossification. We have intramembranous ossification and we have endochondral ossification. Okay, so some parts of the skeletal system can undergo intermembranous ossification, and other parts can undergo endochondral ossification. So intermembranous ossification means that bone formation. So we can say that the ossification actually means that bone formation. Okay, so bone formation for intramembranous ossification happen, that the mesenchyme will differentiate directly into the bone. Okay, so we'll say that intramembranous ossification means that bone formation from mesenchyme directly into the bone. Okay, for example, flat bones of the skull. So the flat bones of the skull undergoes intramembranous ossification. Okay, the second kind, or the second type of ossification, is endochondral ossification. That is the process when the bone formation, in which the mesenchymal cells, just like this one, first of all, we have a mesenchyme. So the mesenchyme cells, firstly, will give rise to cartilaginous model. Okay, so there isn't a direct process. First of all, we will have a cartilaginous model. Okay, so this cartilaginous model, they will later on will be ossified and form the bone. Okay, for example, long bones of the limb. So we will say that this is direct and this is indirect. Okay, just in order to understand it better, I mean. So the mesenchymal cells will give rise to the cartilaginous model firstly, then this cartilaginous will be ossified and form the bone. For example, the long bones of the limb. So look at here. So this is the mesenchyme that will give rise to the cartilaginous or cartilage, and this will be ossified by an ossification process to give rise to, I mean, the long bone, like the long bones of the limbs, okay, or the bone itself. So this is a more complicated process and need a long, detailed explanation, but you're not asked for this in the embryology, okay? So let's come to the skull. So the skull can be divided into two parts, okay? We say the neurocranium and we have the viscerocranium, okay? So the neurocranium, which is actually a protective case that is around the brain, okay? This will be formed by neurocranium, and the viscerocranium, which is which forms the skeleton of the face, okay? The skeleton of the face. So the neurocranium has a membranous neurocranium, we say. This membranous neurocranium is formed by intramembranous ossification. As we said, the intramembranous ossification is happening in the flat bones of the skull. So we say that the kind of ossification right here is the intramembranous, which is directly, okay? Mesenchyme cells are derived from the neural cross cells right here. And this means that these mesenchymal cells have an origin that came from neural cross cells and Paraxial Mesoderm at the same time. Then this will encircle the brain and form the most of the flat bones of the skull. Okay, flat bones of the skull. Regarding the viscerocranium, also we have a part which is called the membranous viscerocranium. This has the dorsal portion and ventral portion. So the dorsal portion will give rise to the maxilla, as we mentioned before, the zygomatic bone, the squamous temporal bone, and the vomer with the palatine bone. As you know, this is all formed from the first pair of pharyngeal arch, okay, as we mentioned before. Contains the meat cartilage that will form the mandible. Okay. Other topic you need to know about it is newborn skull. So there is a difference between the newborn skull and adult skull, as you know. That is the at birth, the flat bones of the skull are separated from each other by a narrow seams of connective tissue. We call it sutures. Okay, so the flat bones of the skull are separated from each other by what? By seams of connective tissue. Okay, and we call these seams of connective tissue as sutures. So at points where more than two bones meet, okay, at the point when more than 2 bones meets, okay, the sutures are wide, and we call these parts as fontanelles. Okay, look at here. So this is the anterior fontanelle, okay, and we have posterior fontanelle. So whenever there are seams of connective tissue between the flat bones, we call it sutures. Look at here, we have frontal or metopic suture, and we have coronal suture with the what? Sagittal sutures. Okay, and we have two frontal metopic, anterior fontanelle and posterior fontanelle. So how do we define it? We say when at the point where more than 2 bones meet, the sutures are wide and they are called fontanelles. So the sutures and fontanelles, for sure, they have their own functions, okay, regarding the newborn skull. So they allow the bones of the skull to develop during birth, okay. So you have a homework right here, okay. You have a homework right here. It says that what are other functions of the sutures and fontanelles, okay. So I mentioned about they will overlap during the birth, okay. They will overlap. The question says, what is the other functions of the sutures and fontanelles regarding the newborn skull, okay, for the newborn skull. There is another function, okay, there is another benefit, let's say, for these sutures and fontanelles. The bones right here, they will overlap during the birth, and they will facilitate the process of giving birth, or labor, I mean. So there is another function for it. Please, we will keep it as homework, or if someone knows, please tell me now. إذا أحد يعرفه هسه. نعم. لحظة، خلينا نسأله. فاللي يعرفها راح يجاوب، راح ياخذ الستار. اللي ما يعرفها، إذا ما عرفتوها كلكم راح نسويها homework، أوكي؟ ف the question نعم أحمد يحكي. أعيد السؤال. إذا sutures and fontanelles, for sure you know it, what is it, as I reviewed for now, and it says that there is functions for this sutures and fontanelles, isn't it? If you've seen a baby أو a newborn baby، إذا شايفين الرضع أو حديثي الولادة، أكيد يعني أكو منكم شايفيها، شايفيهم أو لامسين ظهرهم، صح؟ صح ولا لا؟ إذا شايفيها وتعرفون إنه الرأس شلون يكون لين، ذاك بسبب إيش؟ sutures and fontanelles. Okay, so if you just touch it, you can see the softness, okay, because of the fontanelles and sutures. احنا نسميها بالعربي أعتقد يافوخات، صح ولا لا؟ Okay, so there are functions for these sutures and fontanelles. أكيد صح ولا لا؟ لأنه ماكو في شيء جسم يعني موجود إنه ما عنده function. واحدة من هاي الوظائف is overlapping during the overlapping، إنه شو يصير؟ تصغر الرأس حتى تسهل عملية الولادة. زين أكو وظيفة ثانية عندها، حتى أكو ممكن يكون عندها عدة وظائف. tell me what can be other functions for the sutures and fontanelle.
Allowing the skulls to grow.
Please raise your hand. Raise your hand and answer. Do not talk from your place. Please, everyone. لأنه أنا حاليا بدي أسمع 3-4 أصوات. Okay. Let me see. أحد يقول لي ما سجلت ونسيت. تمام؟ فيكون سجل؟
يا دكتورة أنا بعد ما سجلت حضور.
ليش؟ ندحشي عربي وياكم طلاب. أنا 10 دقائق راح أعطيكم 20 دقيقة همينة. أوكي؟ راح أعطيكم دقائق بعد وأرجع عليها أقفلها. آخر مرة بعد ما أقبل أحد. من كان رافع إيده؟ محمد سعد. you're raising your hand. Please tell me if you have any idea. Yeah, an idea for it. Okay, what else? Can you know anything else? Oh, do you think there is another function? Okay, the purpose is, if I say it, it's just one word. If I say it, it will be the answer. Okay, so just wait. Okay, the clue. Look, the clue for everyone. Everyone, just listen. We have newborn. There is a process for this newborn. This newborn will not stay as it. I don't want to talk anymore because it's just one word. If I mention about it, it will be look. Fontanel. There are two. There are more than one suture. They will unite. I mean, the suture will be wider in this area, so it will be. How can I say? Really soft place. Okay, really soft. But at the time of the labor, they will overlap, and the head will be smaller in order to facilitate the process of labor, or let's say giving birth. Okay, Mohammed, just wait. If you know the answer, please keep it. Just give me the way. Let me know who can answer. إذا جاوبوها إذا جاوبوها هسه فراح ما شو اسمه ما نخليها homework. أوكي. خلينا نشوف بهذا الجروب شهد. Yes, I can hear you. So what will do this pressure? I mean, I didn't understand. What do you mean by this pressure? Just wait. Let Shahid talk. Let Shahid talk. Yes, Shahid. Okay, thank you, Shahid. This is not the answer. Okay, maybe it's an idea, but not the answer. Okay, thank you very much, Shahid. Okay. Yes. بس لحظة. Wait, Muhammad. Wait, Muhammad. Because we have too many students that are raising their hand. We have to give them a chance. Hajar. Hajar. Okay. رقية.
نعم دكتورة.
نعم رافعة يدك. تفضلي.
Protect the skull from any deformation during the growth.
قربتي. You were near to the answer. Okay, thank you very much. but not the exact answer. Okay. راح أرجع. أعتقد كاتبين بالشات حكي. لحظة خلي أشوف الشات ولو أنا ما أريد أشوف أحد عنده ما يرفع إيده. But let's say what you're writing in the chat. Yes, Samim, your answer is right. In order to give the space for the brain to develop. Okay. Okay. أنت كنت رافع إيدك. The sutures remain flexible to allow the brain grow with the baby. Okay. It will allow the skull to expand so that sutures allows the bone to enlarge evenly as the brain grows and the skull expands. Okay, good. Period of time. تردون homework. خلاص هذا بعده مو homework. خلاص بعدها نحن جاوبناها because الجواب خلاص كلهم جابوها. اللي جابوها إذا شوفوا الشاتات انتوا من غير جروب صح. اكو جروب ما اعرف يا جروب سي، لا اي يمكن اي جروب اي بيها هواية مجاوبيها. اوكي الستار. So the first one who I saw is Samim. Okay, those who all answered right, I will give you stars. Okay. Thank you. So let's continue. Let's continue because we don't have time. We will turn. إذا بقالنا ممكن نرجع له. Okay, so we said that the sutures and fontanelles allow the bones of the skull to overlap during the birth and also allow the brain to grow. And during the development, during the growing of the growing process of the newborn, okay, or the baby itself, himself or herself, okay. So this one also I can ask you. This is the anterior fontanelle and this is the posterior fontanelle, okay. And we have sutures right here. There are seams of connective tissue between the flat bones. You need to know the definitions of what it is at I mean the sutures and fontanelles. واضح؟ لازم تعرفوا ايش هو sutures and fontanelles and their function. So vertebral column. We'll come to the vertebral column. We'll just see that the origin for this is sclerotomal cells. Okay, sclerotomal cells. Look at here. Yes. Yes, ask, please. Yeah. Yes. Mm-hmm. Exactly, yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes, right, exactly. They're just reviewing. Good. Exactly. No, that's true, exactly as you understood it. Okay, so thank you. Thank you, Muhammad. So vertebral column, we'll see that the origin for it is sclerotomal cell. And we said before the sclerotomal cells come from mesoderm, which is paraxial mesoderm, isn't it? Okay, look, again, we will say that, let's review it. In هاي مهمة, we say that paraxial mesoderm will form somatomere and somites will form sclerotome and dermomyotome. Okay, so we said that now sclerotome, which are the embryonic connective tissue, they will be the origin, or they will form what the vertebral column. So cells will migrate from what? From sclerotome to form vertebra around neural tube and notochord. So the notochord becomes the nucleus pulposus of the intervertebral discs. All you need to know for this is some migration will happen from sclerotomal cells around the notochord and neural tube, and they will form the the vertebral column. Okay. It's not like that. طبعا هي كلش يعني مفصلة. There are details, but I'm not giving you that details. Okay. So let's come to the ribs. So ribs are derived from also the costal from thoracic vertebrae, and the primary ossification centers appear in the body of the ribs and mostly become cartilaginous during the weeks of 13 and 14 of development. Then later on, there will be secondary ossification centers appear at puberty. Okay. So regarding the sternum, develops from parietal layer of the lateral plate mesoderm and the ventral body wall. Okay. So كل اللي تحتاجون يعني أهم شيء أريدكم تعرفوها هو الأوريجين. Okay. المنشأ منين دا يجي يا لا يكونها. Okay. And the sternum develops from a pair of separate vertical condensed that are actually condensed band, and there we call it sternal bars. Okay, and these sternal bars form independently lateral to the midline of ventral body wall. Then there will be a chondrification occurs while the sternal bars migrate medially. Okay, and by the 10th gestational week means that 2.5 months. Okay, the third month they will fuse in cranial caudal sequence at the midline and form the cartilage model of mammibarium and the sternal body with the xiphoid process. Okay, so this is all for today, but we will have some review, and if anyone have a question, please ask me during the revision. Okay, just let me look at you if you have any questions in the chats. Okay, any question? No. اوكي راح نراجع. فاللي عنده السؤال ممكن يقاطع. في اللي عنده السؤال ممكن يسأل. اوكي ايش قد باقينا؟ بقالنا تقريبا ربع ساعة عندنا حاليا. الكل سجل حضوره؟ سجلتوا الحضور؟
مرحبا دكتورة.
خليته ايش قد نص ساعة. اهلا
دكتورة، بس اذا عندك وقت ورا المحاضرة اعود احكي وياك بلا زحمة عليك.
اوكي ان شاء الله.
ان شاء الله.
شو انت منو؟ لحظة خليني اشوف من اللي يحكي.
احمد الممثل دكتورة.
اوكي احمد. ما دا اشوف لانه مغيرة شو اسمه. اوكي سلايد. طلاب الكل سجل حضوره؟ لا تجوا لي بعد المحاضرة ما مسجلين رجاء. تمام، خلونا نسوي في ريفيجن سريع. قلنا the skeletal system start to develop in the 7th week of development. And regarding the axial skeletal system, this will include the skull, vertebral column, and ribs with the sternum. Okay, so the embryological source for the skeletal system develops from, it will be mainly developed from mesoderm and ectoderm. Okay, بصورة عامة نقدر نقول mesoderm
دكتورة بلا زحمة، أنا ما سجلت حضور.
ليش؟
كنت ما مدخل الحساب الجامعي الكروم.
طلاب بس لحظة انطوني مجال، لأن عندي إشكال بش اسمه بالمنصة مال الأساتذة. ثواني لأنه دا يجيني صوت ما أقدر أسمعكم. اوكي طلاب،
Many practical measures for the control of dental caries are applicable to practice. No single measure for the control of dental caries will be
طلاب تسمعوني؟
نعم دكتور.
ممكن بس تسد المايك مال المنصة لأنه حضرتك صوتك بيجي على الملف مالتنا، بس إذا سد المايك مال الملف فقط مال الجامعة.
تمام. تمام طلاب، يلا نكمل. الشخص اللي ما كاتب حضوره خلينا بعدين نحكي وياه، بس خلوني أسوي في ريفيو سريع حتى نخلص من المادة. فقلنا بصورة عامة the origin for the skeletal system is the mesoderm and ectoderm. وإذا جينا على الميزوديرم، الميزوديرم ectoderm not complicated. Let's say there will be more differentiation. Okay, بتمايز أكثر. Okay, بتمايز أكثر. فشو I mean mesoderm itself. Paraxial mesoderm, intermediate mesoderm, and we have lateral plate mesoderm. Okay, and paraxial mesoderm have the ability to differentiate also into other tissues and cells. Okay, we call them as somite and somitomere. Okay, and the somite itself will differentiate later on. Okay, راح اسوي لكم في المخطط انزلها على الكلاس حتى يبقى ببالكم لا تنسوها. زين. Paraxial and lateral plate mesoderm. Lateral plate أحيانا نسميها parietal layer. These will form the bones of the pelvic, shoulder, girdle, limbs, and sternum. Okay, while the ectoderm, they have the cells, the neural cells. Okay, that they migrate to the head region, and they will differentiate into the mesenchyme, and these mesenchyme will participate in the formation of the bones of the face and the skull. Okay, face and the skull. So look at here again. شوفوا أنا أجيب هاي الصور عادة حتى أعرف إنه الطالب فهم له لا شنو هو أقصد بها differentiation of the mesoderm. Paraxial mesoderm, intermediate mesoderm, and lateral plate mesoderm, they are all formed from mesoderm. Just like the mesoderm هو grandfather بعدين يجينا الأحفاد خلينا نقول. Paraxial mesoderm, they will form somites and somitomere, blah blah. Etc. So paraxial mesoderm, we said that it will differentiate in somitomeres. Okay, there are segmented series of tissue blocks. Just imagine like we have some tissue blocks in each side of neural tube. We call it somitomeres, and they will have the ability to form or to participate in the formation of different systems. Okay. Now we have somites right here. They will differentiate into sclerotome and dermomyotome. Sclerotome are actually mesenchyme tissue, and also can be said as embryonic connective tissue. Okay, look at here. We have the notochord right here. Ectoderm, mesoderm, and endoderm. The mesoderm will differentiate to the paraxial mesoderm, intermediate, and lateral plate mesoderm. Okay. So look at here, the somites in each side of the neural tube. There are block of tissues right here. Okay, we said that process we call it ossification, which means that bone formation. We have two types of ossifications: intramembranous ossification and endochondral ossification. What do we mean by intramembranous ossification? We mean that the mesenchyme will differentiate directly into the bone. Okay, just like the flat bones of the skull. Okay, and endochondral ossification, we mean by it as the process of bone formation in which the mesenchymal cells firstly will give rise to cartilaginous model, and this cartilage will in turn be ossified, and this ossification will give us a bone. Okay, so we'll say mesenchyme cells, cartilaginous model or cartilage, and this will be ossified and will give us a bone, like what? Like the long bones of the limb. So this is also showing that the mesenchyme will give rise to cartilage, and there will be an ossification, a proliferation of the chondrocytes, the bone cells, and this will lead finally to have a bone. Okay, like the long bones. Okay, so we'll come to the skull. So the skull, we said, is divided into two parts, the neurocranium and viscerocranium, and we said the neurocranium will form the protective case around the brain, while the viscerocranium will form the skeleton of the face. Okay, so the neurocranium how this is by mesenchymal cells. They're derived from neural crystals and paraxial mesoderm at the same time. So this will encircle